The massive space station looked like a metal city floating among the stars. Its silver walls stretched for miles in every direction, covered with lights that blinked like jewels. Inside the station's heart sat the Galactic Council Chamber, a huge room where hundreds of alien species gathered to make decisions for the galaxy. Ambassador Zekthara adjusted his purple robes as he walked into the chamber. His skin was green and scaly, and his yellow eyes gleamed with pride. He belonged to the Vorthak Empire, one of the most powerful groups in the council. Today would be entertaining, he thought to himself. The holographic display in the center of the room showed a small blue planet spinning slowly. Earth, the readout said. A tiny world on the edge of the galaxy that most council members had never heard of before this week. Another baby species wants to play with the adults, said High Counselor Veltar with a laugh. His reptilian head bobbed as he spoke, and his sharp teeth showed when he smiled. What do these creatures call themselves again? Secretary Nixara looked at her datapad with 6 arms, her insect-like features clicking as she read. Humans, sir. They are made of carbon and walk on 2 legs. They have only been traveling between stars for less than 200 years. The other council members laughed loudly. 200 years was nothing to species that had been exploring space for thousands of years. Some of the oldest races had been part of the council since before humans learned to make fire. How adorable, said Councillor Drakmon, his blue skin shimmering under the chamber lights. I remember when my people first achieved faster-than-light travel. We thought we ruled the universe too. The pattern was always the same. Young species would stumble upon faster-than-light technology and immediately think they were ready to join the galactic community. They would send diplomatic ships filled with hope and dreams of peace. They would offer friendship, trade agreements, and scientific cooperation. Then the Council would show them how the galaxy really worked. The Council controlled over 400 star systems and commanded the largest military force in known space. When new species appeared, the Council had a simple policy: submit or die. Most species chose to submit after seeing the Council's power. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship Harmony, watching the massive Council station grow larger on his screen. He had served in Earth's Space Navy for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. His ship was tiny compared to the alien station, like a minnow swimming next to a whale. Captain, we're receiving docking instructions, said Communications Officer Lisa Carter. Her fingers moved quickly over her control panel as alien languages filled the speakers. The universal translator worked hard to make sense of the strange sounds. Thank you, Lisa, Morrison replied. He turned to look at his science advisor, Dr. Ben Rodriguez, who was studying readings from his sensors. What can you tell me about their technology, Ben? It's impressive, sir, Rodriguez said, pushing his glasses up his nose. Their power output is enormous, and their construction methods are far beyond ours. But there's something strange about their designs. What do you mean? Everything looks old, sir. Like they built this technology a long time ago and never bothered to improve it. Their ships all follow the same basic pattern: big, slow, and heavily armored. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. Earth's government had sent him here with hopes of establishing peaceful contact with the galactic community. Humanity had so much to offer and so much to learn. They wanted to share their music, art, and scientific discoveries with other species. The docking process took 2 hours. Alien technicians guided the Harmony into a berth designed for much larger ships. Morrison felt like he was parking a bicycle in a parking space meant for trucks. As they prepared to leave their ship, Morrison addressed his crew. Remember, we're here as representatives of all humanity. Stay calm, be respectful, and follow my lead. Earth is counting on us to make a good first impression. The airlock opened with a hiss, and Morrison stepped into the alien station. Gravity felt normal and the air smelled clean but strange. Tall robotic guides led the human delegation through corridors filled with creatures Morrison had only dreamed about in science fiction movies. There were beings made of living crystal that chimed when they moved. Floating, jellyfish-like creatures swam through the air without any visible means of support. Massive bear-like aliens lumbered past on 4 legs, their fur glowing with soft light. But Morrison noticed something troubling in their expressions. The aliens looked at the humans the way adults might look at children playing dress-up. Their eyes held amusement and condescension, as if they were watching a cute but pointless performance. The council chamber was even more impressive than Morrison had imagined. Hundreds of different species sat in tiered seating that rose up like a mountain around the central speaking area. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness, and holographic displays showed star maps and data from across the galaxy. Morrison felt very small as he walked to the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the vast space, and hundreds of alien eyes followed his movement. Some of the creatures were so strange, he couldn't even figure out which end was their head. Zekthera rose from his seat high above the platform. His voice boomed through speakers hidden throughout the chamber, and the universal translator made his words sound cold and formal. "Humans of the planet Earth," he began, "you stand before the Galactic Council, the supreme authority over all civilized space in this galaxy. Your species has achieved faster than light travel, which shows you have some small amount of intelligence." Laughter rippled through the chamber like wind through leaves. Morrison kept his face calm, but Lisa Carter noticed his hands clench slightly at his sides. "Your request for an audience has been granted," Zekthara continued. "We are curious to see what this new species has to offer the galactic community. Please speak your piece." Morrison took a deep breath and began the speech he had practiced hundreds of times. He spoke about humanity's desire for peace and cooperation. He described Earth's rich culture and scientific achievements. He offered to share human knowledge and learn from other species. As he spoke, the alien laughter grew louder. Some council members weren't even pretending to listen anymore. They chatted among themselves or studied their data pads with bored expressions. When Morrison finished his speech, the chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Veltar stood up, his reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. "How refreshing," he said with mock sincerity. "Another idealistic young species with dreams of galactic brotherhood. How utterly predictable." The laughter began again, louder this time. Morrison felt heat rise in his cheeks, but he maintained his diplomatic composure. He had expected some skepticism, but this level of mockery was insulting. Zekthera raised one clawed hand, and the chamber fell, silent again. "We have heard your words, human. Now you will hear ours. This audience is concluded. You will return to your ship and await our decision regarding your species' future." As the human delegation was escorted out of the chamber, none of the council members bothered to research human history or culture. If they had, they might have learned something important about humanity's response to bullies and threats. They were about to get a very expensive education. 3 days passed like a slow nightmare for Captain Morrison and his crew. They remained aboard the Harmony, docked at the council station, waiting for word about humanity's fate. The aliens provided them with food and water, but no information about what was happening in the council chambers. Lisa Carter spent her time monitoring alien communications, trying to understand the dozens of languages flowing through the station's networks. Most of what she heard was routine traffic control and maintenance reports, but occasionally she caught fragments of discussions about the human problem. Dr. Rodriguez used the time to study the alien technology around them. His scanners revealed fascinating details about council engineering and construction methods. But like he had noticed before, everything seemed old and unchanged. The aliens had stopped innovating centuries ago. "Captain," Rodriguez said during one of their briefings, "I've been analyzing their ship designs from the docking bay cameras. All of their vessels follow the same basic pattern: massive size, heavy armor, and simple weapon systems. It's like they're still fighting wars from 1,000 years ago." Morrison nodded but kept his thoughts to himself. Earth's military advisors had briefed him on various scenarios, including the possibility that first contact might not go smoothly. But even the most pessimistic projections hadn't prepared him for the Council's arrogant dismissal. On the morning of the 4th day, robotic escorts arrived to bring the human delegation back to the Council chamber. Morrison straightened his uniform and checked his equipment one final time. Whatever the aliens had decided, he would face it with dignity. The walk through the station corridors felt different this time. The aliens they passed no longer looked at the humans with curiosity. Instead, their expressions ranged from pity to amusement, like people watching someone walk unknowingly toward a cliff. The council chamber buzzed with activity as hundreds of species took their seats. Morrison noticed that several military officials had joined the gathering, their uniforms marking them as fleet commanders and tactical advisors. That didn't seem like a good sign. Sekithara stood at his podium, his yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The chamber fell silent as his voice filled the vast space. "Humans of Earth," he began, "the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding your species and your world. We have carefully considered your request to join the galactic community." Morrison felt his heart beating faster. Around him, alien faces watched with barely concealed excitement, as if they were about to witness something entertaining. "Your species shows promise," Sekithara continued, "but you lack the wisdom and experience necessary for full membership in our community. Therefore, the Council has decided to offer you a generous opportunity to learn from your betters." The word generous sent warning bells ringing in Morrison's mind. Nothing about the Council's attitude suggested generosity. High Counselor Veltar rose from his seat, his reptilian features arranged in what might have been a smile. "These are the terms of our offer, which you will find most reasonable. Your species will immediately surrender all military vessels to Council oversight. You will provide complete technical specifications for your faster-than-light drive systems. You will grant the Council mining rights to 60% of your planetary resources." The chamber erupted in approving sounds from various species. Clicks, chirps, growls, and other noises that Morrison's translator couldn't identify filled the air. The aliens were clearly enjoying this moment. In exchange for these small concessions, Veltar continued over the noise, "The Council will graciously allow your species to continue existing under our protection. You will be permitted to develop your remaining resources as you see fit, provided you follow Council guidelines for primitive species." Morrison felt the blood drain from his face. This wasn't diplomacy. It was conquest disguised as protection. The Council wanted to strip Earth of its defenses and most valuable resources while treating humanity like children who couldn't take care of themselves. "I will need to consult with my government," Morrison said, his voice steady despite the anger building inside him. Sekithara's laugh echoed through the chamber. "Of course you do, little human. We expected no less from such a young species. You have 72 standard hours to return with your government's acceptance of our generous terms." Admiral Kextor, a massive creature covered in blue-black scales, stood up from his position with the military officials. "Perhaps the humans need motivation to make the correct decision," he said, his voice like grinding stone. "The Council fleet currently consists of over 10,000 warships, ranging from patrol vessels to planet-killing dreadnoughts." Holographic displays throughout the chamber lit up, showing images of the Council's military might. Massive ships filled the screens, vessels so large they could carry entire cities within their hulls, weapons systems that could crack planets like eggs, fleets that stretched across star systems like mechanical oceans. "Surely even your primitive minds can calculate those odds," Kextor continued. "One small world against the combined might of 400 civilized systems. Your choice is simple. Submit to our reasonable terms or watch your world burn from orbit." The alien laughter started again, louder and more vicious than before. Some species were literally rolling in their seats with amusement. The idea that these upstart humans might resist the Council's overwhelming power struck them as hilariously absurd. Morrison looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces twisted with mockery and superiority. In that moment, he understood why so many species had simply surrendered to the Council without a fight. The psychological pressure was enormous, designed to crush hope before any resistance could begin. But Morrison had studied military history, and he knew something these aliens clearly didn't understand about human nature. Humanity's greatest victories had always come when the odds seemed impossible. From ancient battles against overwhelming forces to desperate stands that changed the course of history, humans had a peculiar habit of fighting hardest when defeat seemed certain. I understand your position, Morrison said calmly. My government will give your offer the consideration it deserves. Secathera waved one clawed hand dismissively. Return to your ship and contact your leaders. When you come back, bring documents of surrender properly signed by your planetary government. The Council's patience has limits, and our generosity will not be extended indefinitely. As the human delegation was escorted out of the chamber, the alien laughter followed them like an echo of doom. Council members were already making jokes about how quickly the humans would break under pressure. Some were placing bets on whether it would take hours or days for Earth's surrender message to arrive. Walking through the station corridors, Lisa Carter noticed her captain's expression had changed. The diplomatic mask was gone, replaced by something harder and more determined. She had served with Morrison long enough to recognize that look. It was the face he wore when someone had made a serious mistake. Captain, she said quietly, are you going to recommend surrender? Morrison was quiet for a long moment as they walked. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, but filled with steel. Lisa, these aliens have never met a species like humanity. Before, they think we'll roll over and beg for mercy like every other race they've bullied into submission. He paused at the airlock to their ship. They're about to learn why that's a very dangerous assumption. Back in the council chamber, the aliens continued their celebration. None of them bothered to research human military history or cultural patterns. None of them studied Earth's response to previous threats and ultimatums. If they had, they might have discovered humanity's most defining characteristic, the absolute refusal to surrender when backed into a corner. They might have learned about humanity's long history of turning impossible odds into legendary victories. Instead, they simply assumed the humans would behave like every other species before them. They assumed fear would triumph over pride, and practicality would overcome principle. It was the last assumption many of them would ever make. The quantum communication burst from Captain Morrison's ship reached Earth within hours of leaving the Council station. The message traveled through specially designed relay stations that bent space-time itself, carrying Morrison's detailed report. Across thousands of light-years in the blink of an eye, Admiral Susan Blake sat in the Pentagon's most secure briefing room, surrounded by the highest-ranking military and civilian leaders on Earth. The room's walls were lined with screens showing star maps, fleet positions, and technical readouts, but everyone's attention focused on the central holographic display, where Morrison's recorded message played for the third time. So they want us to roll over and play dead, said General Roy Patterson, his weathered face grim with anger. Patterson had spent 40 years in the military, fighting wars on Earth and in the colonies. The idea of surrendering to alien bullies made his blood boil. 60% of our resources and complete disarmament, added Secretary of Defense Helen Wright. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had earned her position through brilliant strategic thinking. They're not offering partnership, they're demanding slavery. Morrison's image continued speaking from the hologram. The Council controls over 400 star systems and commands the largest military force in the galaxy. Their fleet numbers over 10,000 warships. They've never been successfully resisted by any species. But there's something important they don't know about us, Morrison's voice continued. And Admiral Blake leaned forward with interest. I observed their military doctrine during my time at the station. They rely entirely on intimidation and overwhelming numbers. Their ships are large but built using old technology. Their tactics haven't changed in centuries. President Linda Hayes appeared on a secure video link from the White House Situation Room. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with determination. Admiral Blake, what's the status of Project Guardian? Blake activated another holographic display, and the room filled with gasps of awe. Floating in space near Earth's moon was the largest human-built object in history. The UHS Defiant stretched for miles, its dark hull bristling with weapon systems that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. 18 hours until full operational status, Blake reported. Captain Danny Clark and his crew are running final systems tests now. All primary and secondary weapons are online. The new shield generators are operating at full capacity. The Defiance represented 5 years of concentrated human engineering and innovation. While the Council had grown comfortable with their ancient designs, humanity had spent those years revolutionizing space warfare. Every lesson learned from thousands of years of Earth conflicts had been incorporated into the battleship's design. Dr. Martinez, the chief scientist on the Guardian project, stood up to address the room. The Council's ships follow predictable patterns based on their historical encounters. Large, heavily armored vessels designed to intimidate rather than fight efficiently. Their weapons are powerful but slow. Their shields are strong but inflexible. Gestured to technical displays showing the Defiance's revolutionary systems. Our ship takes a completely different approach. We prioritize speed, precision, and adaptability over raw size. Our weapons can penetrate their shields using techniques they've never encountered. Our defenses can adapt to their attack patterns in real time. General Patterson studied the technical readouts with professional interest. What about their numerical advantage? 10,000 ships is still 10,000 ships. That's where human military doctrine comes into play, Blake replied. Throughout our history, we've specialized in defeating larger forces through superior tactics, technology, and determination. From ancient battles to modern warfare, humans have consistently found ways to turn disadvantages into advantages. The room's main screen switched to show historical Earth battles where smaller forces had defeated much larger armies. Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off a massive Persian army. The Battle of Britain, where outnumbered pilots saved their nation from invasion. Countless other examples of human courage triumphing over impossible odds. The Council expects us to surrender like every other species before us, Admiral Blake continued. They think we'll calculate the odds and choose submission over extinction. They don't understand that humans have never been good at accepting impossible odds. President Hayes's voice filled the room from the secure communication link. Admiral, you have full authorization to proceed with Operation Backbone. Show these aliens what happens when they threaten humanity. Blake nodded grimly. Understood, Madam President. We'll send them a message they won't forget. Across the room, communication systems activated as orders flowed to military bases around the solar system. The human fleet, small compared to the Council's forces but equipped with cutting-edge technology, began moving into position. Weapon systems that had never been tested in actual combat powered up for the first time. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, Captain Danny Clark walked through his ship's corridors with quiet confidence. He had served in Earth's Navy for 20 years, rising through the ranks during the colonial expansion period. His crew of 2,000 represented the best humanity had to offer. Engineers, tacticians, and warriors who understood their mission's importance. Captain, called out Commander Amy Turner from the Weapons Control Center. All primary systems are showing green. The main cannon is charged and ready. Point defense networks are online. Clark nodded his approval. The Defiance's main weapon was humanity's masterpiece of destructive engineering. A cannon that could accelerate projectiles to 90% of light speed. No alien shield system in the galaxy had been designed to stop something moving that fast. What's our status on the quantum torpedoes? Clark asked. Full complement, loaded and armed, replied Chief Engineer Pete Adams. The phase variance system is calibrated perfectly. Those torpedoes will pass right through their shields like they're not even there. The quantum torpedoes represented another breakthrough in human military technology. Instead of trying to overwhelm alien shields with brute force, the torpedoes could shift their molecular phase to pass through solid matter. They would detonate inside enemy ships where no armor could protect them. Sir, interrupted Communications Officer Rick Barnes. We're receiving Captain Morrison's return trajectory. His ship will reach the Council station in 14 hours. Clark smiled grimly. Perfect timing. Have navigation plot our course. We'll arrive shortly after the Harmony docks. As the Defiance prepared for departure, its crew understood they were about to make history. No human had ever fought an interstellar war before. No human weapons had ever been tested against alien technology. They were sailing into the unknown, with nothing but their training, their technology, and their absolute refusal to surrender. The ship's artificial intelligence, an advanced system named ARIS, activated throughout the vessel. "Captain Clark," the AI's voice echoed through the ship. "All systems are optimal. Crew readiness is at maximum. Shall I brief the ship on our mission?" "Do it," Clark replied. Throughout the Defiance, monitors activated, and Ares began speaking. To the crew, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to engage in humanity's first interstellar military action. The enemy consists of over 10,000 alien warships commanded by species who believe humans will surrender without a fight." The AI paused for effect. "They are about to learn why that belief is incorrect. We carry the hopes and dreams of 8 billion humans. We carry the legacy of every human who ever refused to surrender when faced with impossible odds. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." As the Defiance departed Earth's solar system, its crew knew they were carrying more than just weapons and technology. They carried humanity's answer to those who would treat them as slaves. They carried the message that Earth would never bow to alien bullies. The Council expected diplomacy. They had laughed at humanity's peaceful overtures. Now they would learn what happened when humans stopped being diplomatic. The Galactic Council Station maintained its usual rhythm of activity as the 72-hour deadline approached. Alien merchants conducted business in the commercial sectors, while diplomats from hundreds of species handled routine galactic affairs. Most council members had already forgotten about the small human delegation, confident that Earth's surrender would arrive on schedule. Zekathara reviewed reports from other newly conquered worlds while sipping a beverage that steamed purple vapor. The pattern never changed. First came the desperate negotiations, then the angry protests, then the inevitable acceptance of council terms. Some species took longer to break than others, but they all broke eventually. High Counselor Veltar was meeting with military contractors about expanding the council fleet. Not because they needed more ships, 10,000 warships could destroy any threat, but because the bureaucracy required constant growth to justify its existence. The contracts would provide work for allied species and keep the military-industrial complex profitable. In the station's sensor control room, technician Kilnova monitored space traffic around the massive structure. Her species, the Zenti, had compound eyes that could track dozens of objects simultaneously. She noticed when the human diplomatic ship Harmony appeared on the edge of sensor range, right on schedule. "Typical," she muttered to herself. Another species returns to grovel for mercy. But something felt wrong as she watched the approaching vessel. The ship's course was correct, but there was another contact on her screens, something much larger moving through hyperspace just behind the diplomatic vessel. "Supervisor Raxton," she called to her superior. "We have an anomaly. There's a second vessel following the human ship." Raxton, a heavy-set creature with 4 arms and crystalline skin, lumbered over to check her readings. His optical sensors focused on the sensor display with increasing alarm. "That's impossible," he said, his voice vibrating through the crystal formations on his head. "The humans only have one ship. What could that be?" Before Kilnova could answer, space itself seemed to tear open near the council station. The familiar blue-white flash of a hyperspace exit lit up the darkness, but what emerged was unlike anything in the council's databases. The UHS Defiance burst from hyperspace like a metal mountain wrapped in lightning. The ship was massive, nearly twice the size of the council's largest dreadnoughts, but its design was completely alien to council sensibilities. Where council ships were rounded and organic-looking, the Defiance was angular and aggressive. Every line of its hull spoke of one purpose: war. Weapon systems covered the battleship's surface like mechanical thorns. Sensor arrays swept space, with active scans that made the station's equipment scream warnings. Shield generators hummed with barely contained energy that made nearby space shimmer with distortion. "Alert! Alert!" Kilnova's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "Unknown vessel has entered restricted space. All defense systems to maximum readiness." Throughout the massive station, alarm bells rang and emergency lights flashed. Council members rushed from their meetings and meals to see what was happening. In over 1,000 years of council history, no one had ever approached their central station with obvious hostile intent. The main council chamber filled quickly as hundreds of species gathered to view the unprecedented situation. The chamber's main display showed the Defiance hanging in space like a mechanical predator, its weapon systems clearly visible and obviously ready for use. "What is that monstrosity?" demanded Veltar, his reptilian scales shifting to an alarmed orange color. "How did the humans build something so large without our knowledge?" Admiral Kextor pushed through the crowd of confused officials to reach the military communication systems. His blue-black scales rippled with tension as he studied the readings from the station's sensors. The numbers made no sense. The energy readings from the human ship were off the charts. "This is impossible," he growled. Their technology was primitive. How did they construct something that advanced in just 5 years? Captain Morrison's diplomatic ship Harmony docked at the station as planned, but now every sensor was focused on the massive battleship, maintaining position just outside weapons range. The Defiance sat in space like a sleeping dragon, its presence changing everything about the situation. Captain Clark's voice filled the silence as his ship transmitted on all communication frequencies. The signal was so powerful it overwhelmed the station's receivers, forcing technicians to reduce the volume to prevent equipment damage. "This is Captain Danny Clark of the United Human Systems battleship Defiance. We are here to respond to the Galactic Council's ultimatum regarding Earth and humanity." The council chamber buzzed with confusion and growing fear. These weren't the submissive words they expected from a conquered species. The human's tone was calm, professional, and completely lacking in the desperation that usually characterized final diplomatic appeals. "This is High Counselor Veltar," came the reply after several moments of stunned silence. "You were instructed to return with your species surrender documents. What is the meaning of this warship?" Clark's response came without hesitation. "The United Human Systems has carefully considered the Council's generous offer. We respectfully decline your terms and present a counter-proposal." Laughter started slowly in the chamber, then built to a crescendo as the aliens processed what they had heard. One ship against the entire Council fleet. These humans had clearly lost their minds from fear and desperation. "You dare to make demands of the Galactic Council?" Zekthera roared, his yellow eyes blazing with fury. "We offer you the privilege of serving civilized species and you respond with threats?" "No threats," Clark replied calmly. "Simply a statement of fact. Humanity's counter-proposal is this: the Galactic Council will immediately withdraw all claims to Earth and human space. You will establish no bases, colonies, or mining operations within 50 light-years of any human world. Any Council vessel approaching human territory will be considered hostile and destroyed without warning." The alien laughter reached deafening levels. Some Council members were literally falling out of their seats with amusement. The idea that these primitives could dictate terms to the galaxy's supreme authority struck them as the ultimate comedy. Admiral Kextor activated the station's tactical displays, showing the positions of Council fleet elements throughout the system. Over 800 warships were within immediate response range, with thousands more available within hours. "You face the might of the entire galaxy, little human," Kextor announced with savage satisfaction. "We command over 10,000 warships, each one capable of reducing your pathetic vessel to glowing plasma. Surrender now and your death will be quick." "You have 10,000 targets," Clark corrected quietly. "We have one very large gun." The chamber fell silent for a moment as the aliens processed this response. Then the laughter started again, even louder than before. The humans' arrogance was beyond comprehension. "One ship against 10,000, Veltar said between fits of laughter. "Your species truly is insane. No wonder you haven't been conquered yet. Who would want to deal with such madness?" Captain Clark's voice filled the chamber one final time, and something in his tone made the laughter die away. "This is your only warning. Withdraw from Earth's vicinity immediately, or face the consequences of your actions." Admiral Kextor had heard enough. His clawed hands activated weapon systems throughout the fleet, and hundreds of Council ships powered up their guns. The displays showed targeting solutions locked onto the single human vessel. "Enough of this nonsense," Kextor snarled. "All ships open fire. Destroy that vessel and show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the Council. 800 alien warships turned their weapons toward the Defiance and fired simultaneously. The combined firepower was enough to crack a moon or boil away a planet's atmosphere. Streams of energy and projectiles raced across space toward the lone human vessel. The Council members cheered and applauded as they watched their fleet's magnificent display of power. In seconds, the arrogant humans would be nothing but expanding gas and debris. The lesson would echo throughout the galaxy for centuries. But as the alien weapons struck the Defiance, something impossible happened. The ship's shields absorbed the massive bombardment without even flickering. Energy that should have vaporized. The vessel simply disappeared into defensive systems that operated on principles the Council had never imagined. The cheering stopped. The laughter died. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had fired their most powerful weapons at an enemy and accomplished absolutely nothing. Captain Clark's voice returned, still calm and professional, despite the devastating attack his ship had just survived. Thank you for demonstrating your hostile intentions. Now let me show you why that was a mistake. The Defiance moved like a hunting shark through the Council fleet, its massive hull cutting through space with impossible grace for something so large. What followed would be remembered as the 17-minute war, the shortest and most decisive military engagement in galactic history. Captain Clark's first target was Admiral Kextor's flagship, a massive dreadnought that had served as the pride of the Council fleet for over 3 centuries. The alien vessel was 3 miles long and bristled with weapons that had conquered 100 worlds. Main cannon. Fire. Clark ordered quietly. The Defiance's primary weapon was a masterpiece of human engineering that used magnetic fields to accelerate tungsten rods to 90% of light speed. When the projectile struck Kextor's flagship, it passed through the alien shields as if they were made of tissue paper. The impact released energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The massive Council ship simply came apart, its hull vaporizing from the incredible kinetic force. Admiral Kextor had enough time to realize what was happening before his bridge disappeared in a flash of superheated plasma. Target destroyed, reported Weapons Officer Amy Turner from her control station. Switching to secondary targets. The quantum torpedoes launched next, their sleek forms racing toward the Council fleet like deadly silver fish. These weapons used phase variance technology to pass through solid matter before detonating inside enemy ships. No amount of armor could protect against weapons that materialized inside the target vessel. Council ships began exploding from within as the torpedoes found their marks. Hulls that had withstood centuries of battle burst open like flowers made of fire and metal. The aliens' most advanced warships were reduced to expanding clouds of debris in seconds. In the Council chamber, panic replaced arrogance as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia watched their mighty fleet burn like candles in a hurricane. This cannot be happening, Veltar whispered, his orange scales now pale with shock. How can one ship destroy our vessel so easily? The tactical displays showed the horrifying truth. Human weapons operated on principles the Council had never encountered. Their shields used adaptive technology that learned from each attack and adjusted accordingly. Their point defense systems tracked and destroyed incoming missiles with precision that seemed almost supernatural. Captain Clark had studied every human military conflict from ancient history to modern space warfare. His ship incorporated lessons learned from thousands of years of human combat experience. While the Council had grown complacent through centuries of easy victories, humanity had never stopped perfecting the art of war. Multiple enemy vessels destroyed, Amy Turner reported as her weapon systems continued their deadly work. Their formation is breaking apart. Some ships are attempting to retreat. The Council fleet, designed more for intimidation than actual combat, found itself completely outmatched. Their massive ships were slow and predictable, following attack patterns that hadn't changed in centuries. Against an enemy that could adapt and counter their every move, size meant nothing. Impossible, gasped Commander Rathvel as his cruisers' weapons failed to penetrate the human shields. Our guns should be able to destroy anything. How are they deflecting our most powerful weapons? His question was answered when a human missile phased through his ship's hull and exploded in the engine room. The cruiser split in half, its crew never understanding how they had been defeated. The Defiance's point defense systems worked with mechanical precision, tracking and eliminating incoming fire before it could reach the ship. Streams of energy and projectiles that should have overwhelmed any vessel were simply swatted aside by defensive systems that operated faster than alien minds could process. "Sir," called out Navigation Officer Steve Parker, "the enemy fleet is scattering. Some vessels are breaking off to attack the station directly." "Let them," Clark replied calmly. "They'll find that equally ineffective." The Council Station's own defense systems activated as desperate alien commanders tried to use the massive structure's weapons to supplement their failing fleet. Enormous energy beams lanced out toward the Defiance, weapons powerful enough to destroy entire cities. The human battleship's shields absorbed the station's attack without visible effect. The defensive systems that protected the Defiance had been designed to withstand anything the galaxy could throw at them, and the Council's ancient weapons were no exception. In return, the Defiance's secondary weapons began targeting the station's gun emplacements. Precise strikes destroyed defensive positions without damaging the structure's life support or civilian areas. It was a surgical demonstration of exactly how much firepower the humans could bring to bear. "Enough." Zekthara's voice filled all communication channels as the ambassador abandoned his dignity in favor of survival. "We surrender. Cease fire immediately." The destruction stopped instantly. The sudden silence was more terrifying than the previous chaos because it demonstrated just how completely the humans controlled the situation. They could stop and start the battle at will, like turning off a light switch. Captain Clark's voice filled the stunned quiet of space. "The United Human Systems accepts the Galactic Council's surrender. These are our terms, which you will find non-negotiable." The surviving council members listened in horrified fascination as their roles completely reversed. Instead of dictating terms to a conquered species, they found themselves receiving orders from beings they had dismissed as primitives. "The Galactic Council will immediately recognize Earth's sovereignty and independence. You will establish no colonies, bases, or claims within 50 light-years of human space. Any Council vessel approaching our territory will be considered hostile and destroyed without warning." The chamber was dead silent except for the sound of alien breathing and the occasional whisper of shock. The mighty council that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was being lectured by a species they had tried to enslave just hours earlier. "Furthermore," Clark continued, "the council will broadcast the following message to every species in the galaxy. Humanity does not negotiate with bullies. We do not surrender to threats, and we do not show mercy to those who mistake our diplomacy for weakness." Throughout the station, alien species looked at each other with new understanding. The galaxy's power structure had just changed forever. The Council's reputation for invincibility was gone, destroyed along with most of their fleet. "These terms are acceptable," Zekthara replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Council agrees to all human demands." Captain Morrison, who had watched the entire battle from the station's observation deck, activated his communicator. "Captain Clark, this is Morrison. I believe our diplomatic mission can now be considered a success." Clark's laughter carried across the communication channel. "Indeed it can, Captain. I think we've successfully established humanity's position in the galactic community." 6 months later, the galaxy looked very different. Young species approaching the Council now carried copies of human military doctrine and asked pointed questions about Council policies. The mere mention of Earth caused Council members to shift uncomfortably in their seats and quickly change the subject. The surviving Council fleet had been reduced to patrol duties and ceremony. Their massive ships, once symbols of unstoppable power, now seemed antiquated and clumsy compared to human designs. Several species had quietly begun developing their own advanced weapon systems, inspired by humanity's example. Ambassador Morrison returned to the Council station aboard the Harmony, carrying genuine offers of trade and cooperation. This time, the aliens listened respectfully to every word he spoke. The chamber that had once echoed with mocking laughter was now silent except for the sound of aliens taking careful notes. "The United Human Systems proposes the establishment of trade routes between Earth and interested council members, Morrison announced from the same platform where he had been humiliated months earlier. We offer to share certain non-military technologies in exchange for cultural and scientific cooperation. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Dozens of species clamored for the opportunity to establish peaceful relations with humanity. The same aliens who had laughed at human diplomacy now competed for the privilege of trading with them. Zekthara, his position somehow miraculously surviving the political upheaval following the fleet's destruction, spoke for the Council. The Galactic Council enthusiastically accepts humanity's generous offer. We look forward to a long and profitable relationship between our peoples. As Morrison concluded his presentation and prepared to leave the chamber, he reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about humanity, but perhaps more importantly, humanity had learned something about itself. They had always been told that diplomacy was about compromise and finding middle ground, but sometimes Morrison realized true diplomacy meant showing potential enemies exactly what would happen if they chose conflict over cooperation. The Council had expected diplomacy, and they had laughed when humanity offered it. They had demanded surrender, and they had mocked human efforts at peaceful resolution, but they had never considered what would happen when humans stopped being diplomatic and started being human. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.